I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
It's good to be back in the house of the Lord. Always good to be here. Good to have John back with us. John may not know, but I told the others that Patsy and I was coming back Saturday, and I was concerned about the church because I couldn't get anybody to fill in for me that Sunday. I told her, I said, let's just go ahead and drive all the way through. And since we felt good, I said, let's just, going down, my back bothered me. I had to get out every so often. Coming back, my back didn't bother me a bit. And that's what I told her. I said, well, I'm feeling pretty good. Let's just keep driving. And we just kept driving, got too close to the house for us to stay. I said, let's just go on home. That way we can go to church Sunday. And John wasn't here, and Greg was sick, and I don't know that they knew what was going to happen then. But the Lord worked it out for us, didn't He? But it's good to be here. Shortly after the meeting, if we would, we'll stick around. I wanted the trustees to have us a quick meeting and make a few decisions here. And it shouldn't be very long at all if you can stick around for just a little bit. Matthew chapter 17 tonight. Matthew chapter 17. We finished up and did 16 last time. So Jesus, of course, he had taken his disciples away for a little while here, and he was in the coast of Sicily, Philippi, and it says here that and after 6 days, Jesus taking Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into a high mountain apart. Now you may ask, well, what is the 6 days? Understanding that in the Old Testament, a lot of the prophecies or the prophets foretold of a new Moses, or one greater than Moses, coming to them, and there was a lot of the similarities and the storytelling of how this is the fulfilling of Jesus coming, of those prophecies. And the 6 days refers to when Moses climbed up on the mountain. It says that it was surrounded by a heavy fog or smoke for 6 days, and then God spoke to Moses on the seventh day. So 6 days, it says that he was there and that he prepared to go up into the mountain. And the other thing that I noticed here, and that who he took with him was Peter, James, and John. Of course, we've all heard it said in the past that is his inner circle of the disciples. He had those three that probably spent the most time with him, or those three probably was the closest to him. So when he had things to do, and the reason, why did he have three? Why not have four in his inner circle? Well, in the Mosaic laws, to have a witness, you had to have three of them. So he had three here that he followed with, and so that he could also keep the laws properly. And they was the witness to the things that had happened. So, but he went up on this mountain apart from the others, and he said, and he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Now, many times in the Bible, when angelic beings or heavenly beings came before men, they would be described as being in white raiment. And if you think of talks about his face did shine, also refers back to Moses when he was on the mountain. When he came down, his face glowed from seeing God or being with God. Matter of fact, it said his face glowed so much that they had to put a veil over it to protect others from looking upon his face. So you see again the tie-in of Jesus tying in to what Moses did. But it says that, and beheld there appeared unto them Moses, and Elijah talking with him. Now, Elijah, of course, in the Bible, Elijah was taken up by God. He did not see death. He's one of them that was taken up. And you know the story of Moses, how when he looked over into the promised land, he didn't go into that, but he got to go into the promised land that God had provided, into God's promised land. And it says that God himself, in the Old Testament, that God himself carried away Moses to be buried. So there's a lot of people that argues that he also did not die, that maybe God took him up. So these are the two people that are some of the most powerful religious leaders of the Old Testament times. These is who Moses and Elijah was speaking with Jesus.
And Moses, kind of look at him as the law, and Elijah the prophet.
Mm-hmm. The law and the prophet, absolutely. So you see these two speaking with him. It says, then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make thee 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Now, a tabernacle there was not anything great and big. A tabernacle could also be a booth, because they had the booths, sometimes they built a tabernacle was a mound of rocks. But of course, Peter, being a good Jew, would know how to build a booth, because they had the booth of the tabernacles was one of the Jewish celebrations they had, when they would build these little mini booths, and they would dwell in them for so many days to celebrate them coming out of the land of Egypt, and how they set up in the desert and how they did so. So he would know how to build one of the tabernacles that they used. So he wanted to build one for the 3 of them, the 3 that was transfigured there in the white raiment, standing before them. Understandably for us, if we see something supernatural or something that we want to do something to remember it. And building a tabernacle, or building maybe a small altar or something, would be a way to do so. If we remember a lot in the Old Testament, they would put markers such as rocks and things at certain points. We can remember when they crossed the river going into the promised land. When Joshua led them across, they picked up stones out of the river, one for each of the tribes, and they placed them on as a place to remember how God had delivered them. And so we see different things they did to remember what they saw. So this was Peter's way. Of course, Peter was always brash and bold and spoke a lot of times before I think that he thought about what he was saying. So he was a man of action, wanted to get things done. So here he is wanting to do so. And it says, while he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice of the cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. Isn't that something? I was thinking about that. Isn't that something to think about?
He was a little more than Moses and Elijah, wasn't he?
Oh, yes.
But I mean, Peter threw a tree ball. So we'll build 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. Then he got revealed that he was actually God in the flesh.
Yeah, even greater. Then.
What do you think the purpose of this occasion was, taking them up there?
Well, to me, when you think about what happened, I think it was to help to show his authority of fulfilling what Moses and the other prophet, well, not Moses, but the other prophet spoke of one coming that's greater than Moses, by them having the witness to see that yet here he was, just as Greg was saying, here he is speaking with Moses and Elijah. And it's showing that even when the voice came down, I think it showed Jesus' authority. That he was who he said he was, and that they needed to listen to him. I like that when it says, hear ye him.
I kind of thought of it in this way, and I'm not sure that it's true, but they didn't have the Holy Spirit as of yet. And this, taking them up there and showing them this, gave them what they needed to endure what they had to fight, what was following. Jesus said, greater works than these shall you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't do it until the Holy Spirit came. And I think it gave them the vision or the need to see what was, it gave them the confidence, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I always, still in my mind, I wonder why it was always those three. You know, even in the garden, he took those three.
Took those three, yep.
And,
well, those three, I think, really was the leader of the 12.
well, I think so, but with Jesus being there with them, you could almost think of them as equal. I think, which we are equal in his sight to start with, but they had different, I guess they had different things, responsibilities or whatever.
They did. I think Jesus was taking those three and really grooming them to say, hey, you know, each group needs a leader.
Yeah.
And when I'm going, because he tells them in this here just a little bit not to tell anybody until after he's gone. But they needed someone to come forward and tell, and you had to have three to be the proper witness of the things they seen. Even when he went in Jairus' house and healed, brought that girl, the 12-year-old girl, back to life, he took those three in with him and he told them not to tell what they saw. So he had to have witnesses of the things that he did so that when he was going, people would believe. And it showed, and I think it did, it prepared them so much as what John was saying, of the things that's going to come after he's gone. Be prepared and be ready. But here he says here, God's telling them, hear ye him. And it got me thinking, do we listen to that voice? How often do we just sit in quiet maybe? And you know, we know Elijah said he wasn't in the wind and the storm, but he was in that still small voice. Do we sit and listen for that voice and to hear what he has to say? Or are you like I am? I just want to make my own mind up, just go ahead and jump in and go do it. I'm kind of more like Peter in that sense, that I like to, when somebody says let's do something, I'm all right, let's go do it, let's get it done. And have to be told every now and then to slow down and think about it.
It might be like Elijah. He withstood the 800 or so
prophets,
and then that one woman scared him to death.
One woman. It says, and when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. Folks, I would be too.
Yeah.
I would be. As so many times we can see throughout the Bible of when angels or someone came, we can think of Mary, and we can think of Joseph and all of the others, that when the angel appeared before them, how they bowed their face before him. And folks, if I seen something like that, I would certainly be hitting my knees and hitting the ground. But he says, and Jesus came and touched them and said, arise and be not afraid. How many times did we hear that right after they said that they were sore afraid? Be not afraid.
I think the shepherds were on.
Yes, shepherd's word. I can imagine when our time comes and we stand before God that we're going to be the same way. Before Him, smiling, being so afraid, wouldn't we? Then what does He say? Enter in, thy good and faithful servant. Be not afraid. I can imagine how that day's going to be. And there are going to be so many that's, when He says, depart from me, we'll be so afraid. He says, when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. So the others had disappeared, and the smoke had disappeared. The voice they heard is gone. Hear ye Him.
How many years have been since Elijah, Moses had left you? Several years there.
Oh, Moses would have been a long time. Elijah was after him. So, yeah, it'd been a long time since they had been there. But why do you think that He says, hear ye Him? He doesn't need a tabernacle built for Him, did He? He was going to create a church for Him. That's what He was leaving behind, not a tabernacle.
That's what He's showing them too. It's out there for them to do.
Mm-hmm. It says, and as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, or don't be telling people, commanded them. Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And His disciples asked Him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elijah must come first? That was foretold, that Elijah would come before the Messiah. And Jesus answered and said to them, Elijah truly shall come first and restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that He spoke unto them of John the Baptist. Isn't that something? Even His own disciples here didn't understand until Jesus had to explain it to them. As they walked from the mountain. What do you mean He's already came? Didn't you even understand it or see Him and understand? Who was it that was a forerunner that came? I wonder what that conversation was like coming down off that mountain. And when they had come to the multitude, there came to Him a certain man kneeling down to Him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic and sore vexed. For oft times he falleth into the fire, and oft time into the water. And I brought him to the disciples, and they could not cure him. This is what Jesus came off of the mountain to find. What did Moses come off the mountain and find?
Golden calf.
A golden calf. People had forgotten about it. They were doing their own thing. Jesus comes off the mountain. Here his disciples can't cast out an evil spirit or a demon or out of someone. And here they are coming into some of the same things that Moses. Again, you see the similarities of Moses and Jesus. Yeah, he got mad at him, didn't he?
I think Jesus was a little bit mad there.
He did flip over a few tables, didn't he?
Lack of faith.
Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with thee? That's a question. And how long shall I suffer you? Another question. Bring him hither to me. Jesus, I think, was a little upset with him, wasn't he? How long, you perverse generation? Now, I know there was more there than the disciples that he left behind. Jesus had a large following of people coming after him. There was a lot of people that was there, and they were probably trying to help and do, and, you know, there was a crowd that gathered waiting for Jesus' return. You perverse generation, how long shall I be with you, and how long shall I suffer you? It says, and Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the children were cursed from that very hour.
Cured.
Cured. Okay. I'm sorry. And the child was cured from that very hour. It says, then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out? Now, I have some thoughts on that. You see, just think back not too long before that, Jesus had sent them out in twos. Right? Didn't he do it? Sent them out in twos, and they healed, and they cast out, and they preached, and they did all the things that Jesus did. See, they did that on Jesus' authority. He gave them authority to do so. I wonder when Jesus was up on the mountain, did they try to do it in Jesus' authority, or did they try to do it on their own authority?
Yeah, because they were amazed. I remember when they went out there, even the devils were subject to us.
Yeah.
So they done what he told them to do.
See, they didn't have the Spirit yet.
Right.
It hadn't been given them.
It's authority.
They just had the authority. They didn't have the Spirit.
But they came back rejoicing because they had it, other than
Yeah.
why they had it.
So here they are. They come to Jesus. And I can understand they probably was very embarrassed that they couldn't do that, or Jesus had to step in and do it for them. And they didn't publicly want to be humiliated anymore. So they waited till Jesus got alone with them. And Jesus, why couldn't we do it? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. Because of your unbelief.
If you don't believe, it's impossible to be saved. You must believe.
Unbelief. That is the hardest thing, I believe, to overcome. Sure, every now and then, even I get doubts. That's when the old adversary is working on us. It tries to creep in every now and then. And the best thing to do is grab the Bible and read a little bit. It reconfirms it. It helps me. But unbelief, because of their unbelief. It says, if you had the faith of the grain of a mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence yonder place, and it shall remove. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. I believe that Jesus is talking about here, and he brings up the mountain. A mountain to them, in their culture, in their storytelling, in their belief, the mountain is always the most sturdiest of all objects around them. Trees can grow and get big, but they'll die and fall down. Mountains are always mountains. Reason why a lot of times in the Old Testament, and even in the New Testament, when they mention troubles in your lives, it's mountains. Because mountains are always there. They're immovable. So when he tells them that if they had the faith of the grain, the size of a grain of a mustard seed. Now, mustard seed is one of the smallest seeds. It's not the smallest, but it's one of the smallest. And I don't think he's really saying that it just takes that much faith and you can move the mountain. I think what he's really trying to tell them, it's not the size of your faith, it's the size of the faith that we have in someone that is able to move the mountain. See, God can move the mountains physically and spiritually in our lives. If we had faith in him, in that one, that's the one that can move. We can't move it on our own. But faith in him. In Zechariah, I just read that a little bit ago. I think it's chapter 4. He brings out and says, and I think in about the 6th verse when he says that for God to move the mountain that is in his way. The mountain is an obstacle. The mountain being the obstacle that he mentions. That God will move them all out, and as he says in Zechariah, and make the mountains as a plain. In other words, he'll take the mountains that's in our trouble and smooth them out and flatten them before us. It's a whole lot easier walking across flat ground than it is climbing a mountain. I believe that's what he's trying to tell the disciples. If you just had that much belief in God, he could move that mountain for you. But howbeit this kind that comes out only by prayer and fasting. Have any of you tried to fast? I've tried it. It's not easy. It's hard. There's different ways to fast, and we studied that one time in one of my classes, but fasting is hard. And it can be done, because if you have the faith in what you're doing, in prayer, and in what you're doing, fasting is hard, but it can be done.
I work with a guy like every 3 months he'd fast for a week. Only thing you can do is drink water.
Prayer.
For a week.
Through prayer, it can be done. But you have to have that faith. If you had the faith and you had the prayer life, folks, fasting can be done. It's hard, but that's what he's saying here. It can only be removed through prayer and fasting. It means you got to put some effort and work into it. It says, and while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto him, the Son of Man shall be destroyed unto the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and the third day he shall be raised up again. And they were exceeding sorrow. See, they understood through the teaching about the resurrection. They was understanding the resurrection. You remember how Martha and Mary came out, and when he was coming to see Lazarus, and he said that he'll be raised again. And they said, yea, Lord, we understand that he will be raised again in the resurrection. They believed that that's what Jesus was talking about, that he would be raised again in the resurrection. They didn't quite understand what he meant. I believe, because to me that's what I get out of it. That they did not understand him when he was talking about being raised again on the third day, because when it happened, they were afraid and they were hiding away. And then when the women came and told him what happened, they had to run and see. And it was then that they remembered what he told them. See, I think here they didn't understand. They understood him being put to death. They understood that part, and they were exceedingly sorry about that. But if they believed that he said in 3 days he'd be raised again, wouldn't they be celebrating? Hey, Lord, it'll be sad for 3 days, but boy, at the end of that third day, we're going to be happy, won't we? I don't think they understood.
He said they came along a bunch of ladies like they had the fairy tales. But all of a sudden, no, Peter and John run to this.
Well, let's go find out.
They didn't take them on, did they?
Yeah. It says when they had come to Capernaum, they received tribute money to Peter and said, "Does not your master pay tribute?" Now, it was paying the tribute here was paying money to the synagogue for the upkeeping of it. Every male over the age of 20. And this is where, if you look and understand, you see how young Jesus' disciples were. In this right here coming up story, how many of them had to pay the tribute? 2 of them. Jesus and Peter. They were over the age of 20, meaning his other disciples must have been under 20 years old. His disciples were young. It was the young that were the disciples, that were the teachers, that were the students, I mean. So there come time to pay the tribute, and he saith yes, and when he was come into the house, Jesus perceived him saying. Now, isn't it something here? Before Peter even spoke, Jesus knew what he was going to say. He perceived it, and he answered it before he ever asked it. What thinkest thou, Simon? He knew Simon was coming to him to ask him about paying the tribute. See, a lot of them paid the tribute every year. The Sadducees believed they only should have to pay it one time in their life. Others believed, the scribes and the Pharisees believed you paid it every year. The Sadducees believed you had to pay it once in your life. Because what happened was this money would build up in the treasury, and after a while they had so much they'd spend it on other things. What thinkest thou, Simon? In whom did the king of the earth take custom or tribute? Should me as being the king of everything, I'm the one that created it all, should I pay the tribute? What do you say, Peter? Who pays it? Of their own children or of strangers? Folks, here's the thing. When they gathered taxes, who paid it? Did their own children pay it? Or did the strangers pay the tax? I found this very interesting. When we traveled, and John travels through Tennessee, if you know, Tennessee does not pay or does not charge the people that lives in Tennessee. You do not have to pay income tax in the state of Tennessee. But boy, they've got one of the highest sales taxes you've ever seen. That's about 8 or 9%. So anything you buy there is taxed because they have all of these people that comes into the state for Memphis, for Nashville, for Dollywood, for all of these other things you go. You pay a bunch of taxes when you go to that state. Why? Because you're the strangers in that state. They don't care a bit to charge you. That's what Jesus is asking here. Peter, I'm the one that created it all. Should I be the one to pay? How does the kings do it? How does the rulers do it? Do they charge their own children to live in their house? Or do they charge the stranger? Who do they charge, Peter? Who should I pay it? Because I'm the creator and the king of it all. Peter said unto him, of strangers. Jesus said unto him, then are the children free? Does that mean, does the children have to pay the tax to their own parents? Notwithstanding, see, Jesus didn't want to break the custom because he wanted to leave the example. Why did Jesus get baptized? Did he need to be baptized? No, he wanted to do it to show it as an example. So he's going to show his people here, let's not get in trouble with people. Let's not try to cause, let's just go along with it. He says, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast a hook, and take up the fish that first cometh up, and when thou open his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and for thee. Peter go down to the sea, cast a hook, catch a fish, which Peter was pretty good at catching fish. He was a fisherman. Bring that fish in, take the coin out of it, and pay it for me and thee. See, Peter was the only one of the disciples that was married, because he was of the marriage in age. So that means that all of the other disciples were under that age or younger. So go down and catch that and take the coin out and pay for you and me. Well, I hope y'all got something out of this tonight. All of it's good.
Yeah, I like that. He was teaching a lesson, wasn't he, about the children, that he was a child, they were children of the king. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.